Well, I've found Trent from Mercury Motorsport here at World Time Attack, and Trent's well known for his exploits with Nissan's GTRs, and particularly NITTO II that's sitting behind us is now the proud owner of the world record for the fastest radial tired four-wheel drive GTR drag record. Trent, what sort of time did you actually run to get that record?
We ran a 793 at 175 mile an hour, and that was our first pass off the trailer.
First pass off the trailer, so that's got to show there's probably a bit more potential left in it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a cliche, but we were on low boost, which is about 34 pound. We've had the engine up to 55, so we've definitely got a bit more power in the tank there. So we'll do a bit more testing and slowly turn it up.
Okay, let's rewind for those of our viewers out there who don't understand the term radial tyre. Can you just explain to us what a radial tyre is and how that differentiates from a full drag slick?
Yeah, well, the radial tyre is constructed with steel radial belts. It's akin to a street tyre. That's what you drive around on the streets with. The drag slicks are cross ply, so a different construction and basically grippier and better 60 foots. So for us to be getting the times we are on a radial tyre, it's obviously not a street car, but we're trying to use the very best street tyres.
Now, when we talk about street tyres, because that does start getting into a fairly grey area. Now, these are still not a tyre you could roll down the street on and not expect to get problems from the local police, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Like, they're a full slick with a few grooves in there. It really is just a record based on the construction. So.
Okay, let's get into what actually made that record possible though. Can you start with telling us what's powering it? What's the engine combination that you're using?
Yeah, we run a NITTO 3.2 stroker kit in a VL RB30 block. It's got a GTR RB26 head, dry sumped. It runs a 2-speed Power Glide auto from Rips in New Zealand. Then it's still 4-wheel drive, so it has all the 4-wheel transfer case and everything on there. Then Precision Pro Mod 88 Gen 2 Turbo, Haltech ECU, Hypertune Plenum, front mount intercooler, 5-inch titanium exhaust out the guard, and it runs on E85.
Okay, so pretty much the usual culprits you'd expect to see in any engine making those sort of numbers, capable of running 7s. And in terms of boost pressure, you said low boost is 34 psi, high boost you've had as high as, what did you say, sorry?
Yeah, low boost 34, and we've had up to 55.
And what sort of numbers are you seeing on the dyno with those boost settings?
We actually had 55 with a slightly smaller turbo, and that was just on-track testing. So with the auto, we haven't really tuned it. I actually tuned it with a 6-speed sequential gearbox in there on 12 psi, and then I've done the rest of the tuning out the track.
Now, for those of our viewers out there who are watching this, can you just explain how the auto makes things a little bit more difficult when we're on a dyno tuning compared to a manual gearbox?
Well, when you start to load it up, it typically flares to stall converter speed, and then kind of hangs there until the wheels catch up, and then accelerates from there. Because we're stuck in 1-to-1 top gear, the dyno maxes out at 250 k's an hour, so I can't do a full pull because rev limit is about 290 k's an hour at 10,000 RPM.
Now, with any drag engine making the sort of numbers this is obviously going to be producing, data logging at the track and tuning at the track becomes vital. So what sort of data are you actually looking at? What are you relying on from your data logging to make tuning changes?
Well, we run the full Haltech catalogue basically. We have individual cylinder EGTs, wideband lambda, boost, coolant pressure, oil temp, coolant temp. So basically as many sensors as we can get on the car. All of that is data logged. The car is tuned in TPS mode rather than map sensor for the fuel, and it uses the Haltech VE sort of back end to do the calculations. So I really tuned it on 12 pound and slowly turned the boost up and just monitored everything. And then, luckily the calculations are that good that, there was only slight adjustments as the boost was turned up. And then check spark plugs and stuff for knock with for ignition timing.
And I noticed when we were looking in the engine bay, you've got a reasonably special trigger system on this engine. Now, the Nissan factory cam angle sensor is well known to give a lot of trouble. It's driven off the camshaft. You've got 360-degree slots, and the resolution is really fine, which gives a lot of trouble, particularly when you go modifying the engine with more aggressive cam profiles. It gives a lot of triggering issues. Well, what have you done with this particular combination?
Yeah, so we've deleted the factory setup. We run an ATI balancer with 12-tooth disc incorporated into the balancer itself. We just made a custom bracket, and we've got a cherry sensor down the bottom there to get the trigger. And then there's a local company in Brisbane called Kulig Engineering. They do a really nice billet CNC home trigger setup. There's a small section that bolts onto the front of the camshaft, and it swipes past a sensor at the top.
Earlier you also mentioned you had cooling system pressure being logged as well. Most of the small capacity import motors, the limiting factor sort of seems to be head gasket integrity, so is that one of the reasons you've got that sensor in there? Yeah,
definitely. We want to, as we're turning the boost up, we want to see at what point we're having head gasket issues or coolant pressure. It's just one of those sort of health check stats that we log. When it gets a bit out of control, take the head off and have a look. When we're running 50 plus pounds of boost, it really is a bit of a mission to keep the cylinder head on there. We just run a standard NITTO head gasket, one of their multi-layer steel type. So we haven't gone too extravagant in terms of trying to keep the head gasket intact, but so far so good.
In terms of getting that power to the track, with the two-speed glide and you're running the factory Nissan transfer case behind it, are you running a full lock-up on the front wheels, or are you doing anything tricky in there to try and vary the amount of drive to the front and rear wheels?
We've actually deleted all the standard Tesla system. I've got a manual hand pump in the car, so I'll do my burnout with 0 transfer case pressure, reverse back, pump up the hand system. I have a PSI that I like to run, and then we've actually got that connected to a solenoid in the Haltech computer. So when I reach a particular speed, it turns the solenoid on, bleeds the pressure off, and it finishes the pass in rear-wheel drive.
Okay, so that's quite an interesting combination of the way you're running that. How much of an advantage is it transferring back to rear-wheel drive at the end of the run?
Well, we haven't really done a clean back-to-back test, but it's probably only like a mile an hour or two. Personally, I wouldn't be bothered if we just left four-wheel drive on the whole time. It's only probably 30 or 40 horsepower in terms of sort of residual loss. It's just one of those, a small percentage type thing. We're just trying to do everything we can to get the number.
Well, I mean, if it's already run a 793 at 175 mile an hour, you mentioned it's run as fast as 180 mile an hour, and if this is all on a low 34 PSI, certainly can't wait to see what you can get that record down to when you run it on a full 50 plus PSI, and we wish you all the best when you do turn the wick up. Thanks for having a chat to us, Trent.
No worries, thanks very much.
For online tuning courses, visit learntotune.com.